Hello everyone. This is the 12th part of the story, I'm Voldemort. Chapter 95, Heading Out. A few days later, Steve and Peggy called for Tom in a secluded area. After vetting Tom's information and preparing everything, they were ready for the assault on the main Hydra base. When they brought Tom's information to their higher-ups, they were very suspicious of it. Anything given so easily usually has strings attached to it, but after surveying the area, they found that the bases were actually there. Once they saw the credibility of the info, they started planning for a grand assault on all 4 bases. The Howling Commandos would take the main base while the Allied forces would send their own men to take down the other 3. Yo! Tom says as he appears behind Steve and Peggy in a pop. He looked extremely tired with sunken eyes that carried bags underneath. They could tell he hasn't slept in days. Hey, man. Have you been sleeping well? Steve says with concern in his voice. No, I haven't slept since we last met. Tom says with a yawn. Why? We have an important mission coming up. You need to be in top shape. Yawn. Yeah, but I also need to be strong enough to kill the greatest Dark Lord to ever live, so sleep isn't really an option right now. Tom yawns and waves his hand dismissively. Did you perfect that secret weapon of yours yet? Steve asks curiously. Almost. I ran into a few snags, but it's nothing I can't overcome. Tom nods his head. Have we come up with a date and time for the assault? Yes, 3 days from now at dawn. Where do you want to meet? You're our transport after all. Peggy asks. We'll meet where we met last time. Have everything you need and be ready to fight. I'll get us in the base if it's not warded. If that isn't possible, I'll get us as close to the base as possible. Tom says with a tired expression. I need to get back to work. Hopefully, I'll finish in time to get some sleep before the fight. No, you will finish in time before the fight. We can't have you falling asleep during an important moment. Peggy gravely lectures Tom. Yes, ma'am. Tom gives her a salute and disappears back to his practice. 3 days later on the day of the assault, the Howling Commandos are ready and waiting at the demolished bar. They all knew how they would be getting to the Hydra base, but their higher-ups were confused. They offered to parachute them in or something, but Steve denied it, saying he had a way in. When they asked him how, Steve and Peggy ended up telling them that they don't want the information to leak, so they're keeping it to themselves. Many were upset, but Captain America has a lot of sway in the Allied army. They let him handle it since he's been winning them battle after battle. While waiting for Tom to arrive, Steve led Peggy away from the group to speak privately. Peggy, can I just say something before we go? Steve says seriously as he stares into Peggy's eyes. They may not survive this battle, so he wanted to get something off his chest. Yeah, sure. She says, too worried about the mission to noticing Steve's odd atmosphere. I've been on more missions than I can count and none scare me more than this one. I may die and I need to say this or I'll regret it. Steve intimately stares into Peggy's eyes as she starts to see where this is going. I love you more than anything, Peg. Since the moment I laid eyes on you, I knew we would be together. Even when I was just a scrawny kid from Brooklyn, I was thinking of how to impress you into accepting a date. Steve laughs at his former self as tears start pouring down Peggy's face. I love you too, Steve. Peggy smiles as she wipes her tears away. Good, because I hoped you would agree to something for me. Steve says as he gets down on one knee. The second he got down on his knee, Peggy's mouth dropped open in surprise. Peggy Carter, will you marry me? If I'm going to die, my girl needs to know how much I love her. He says as he opens a small jewelry box revealing a diamond ring. I. Peggy stutters, not knowing how to put together the words. Steve takes the diamond ring out and holds it up to her. It belonged to my mother and my grandmother before her, Steve says as Peggy snatches the ring and puts it on with shaky hands. I do, she yells as that was all she could think of. I think the I do's come at the wedding, Peg. Steve grins and Peggy slaps him on the shoulder. You know what I mean, you prat, she says as she admires her new ring. As she's lost in the moment, the smile on Captain America's face fell. He stood up as a frown replaced his once thrilled expression. Looking over Peggy's shoulder, Steve nods and a spell is fired. Stupefy, Tom calls from behind Peggy and she freezes in place. Before she could fall to the ground, Steve catches her with perfect care so she doesn't get injured. Thanks, Tom, Steve says as he stares sadly at the love of his life. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I can't say that for sure, but you're doing what you think is right. She has no special powers like you or me, and this mission will be very deadly, Tom replies, trying to comfort Steve. One thing's for sure though. There's going to be hell to pay when she wakes up. Hee, you got that right. Steve laughs awkwardly as he imagines the painful lectures he'll be put through. But I'd rather her mad at me forever than dead because I brought her along. Do you want me to open a portal to the Allied base's barracks? Tom asks and Steve nods. A portal is opened and Steve carries Peggy in and places her carefully on her bed back in the barracks. Once that was done, Tom and Steve return to the destroyed bar. They're met by the Howling Commandos on one side, and Tom's followers on the other. Tom only brought his most skilled fighters as anyone else would be killed easily by Grindelwald's acolytes. Druella is here as well as she's his strongest follower and friend. He wasn't sure whether to bring her or not but decided to trust in her strength. Everyone Muggle and magical is prepared for a fight to the death. Chapter 96 Assault on Hydra begins. In preparation for the attack on the main Hydra base, Tom sent some elves to survey the area. They were told to not get too close and just find out if the base was warded or not. They also popped him over to see the area as Tom has to open a portal for everyone to arrive. They found out that the base was in fact warded, so Tom can only open a portal outside the wards. He had no time to come up with an infiltration plan like he did with Rosier Manor. All of his time was spent working on Project Gilgamesh. What is good about the wards is the fact that they aren't very powerful. The Hydra base isn't located on any ley lines or powered by a millennia-old ward stone. The best that Grindelwald was able to do is block all forms of magical transport and set an alarm for intruders. Once everyone was together, Tom and Steve stood before the men and women that would lay down their lives in battle today. Tom and his followers continue to wear their masks so they can hide their identity during this mission. Who knows whether one of Grindelwald's acolytes would escape and spread their identities. Steve steps up and addresses everyone. Before we set off, I just want to say something. This fight will be different than the rest and the possibility of death is far higher than what it was on our other missions. Seeing as this is the case, I give anyone the ability to simply walk away right now. You won't be judged by your decision, nor will you be ridiculed. Does anyone wish to leave? Steve says and all of his men don't budge an inch. The same goes for my followers as well. We are facing Grindelwald and I know many of you have heard great and terrible things about him. Though you won't be fighting him as I'll be taking care of it. If you are scared and wish to return home, now is the chance to walk away. Tom steps up and stands next to Steve, surprising his followers immensely with his words. Not that Tom isn't a kind leader, but he tends to rule with an iron fist most of the time. The fact that he's giving them a chance to leave made them feel better about following such a person. After a tense moment of waiting, none of Tom's followers chose to leave. To them, Tom is unbeatable, and they didn't want to miss a battle between him and the greatest Dark Lord to ever live. Once everyone was ready, Tom opened a portal to a forested area outside the bunker-type Hydra base. As everyone was making their way through the portal, Steve surveyed the area. Only one road led to the huge bunker door, and it's blocked and guarded by many Hydra soldiers. Though they no longer had futuristic guns thanks to Tom stealing the Tesseract, they do have a distinct number advantage. Not to mention the advantage they have as the defending side. Do you have a plan to get inside, or should we go with mine? Steve turns to Tom and asks. What's your plan? Tom asks. Get caught, break free, and take out the bad guys. Steve replies and explains in a bit more detail. I like portions of that plan, but let's tweak it a bit. Tom says as he starts relaying his plan. On the road leading to the Hydra bunker door, a lone man dressed in red, white, and blue carrying a shield could be seen. This is obviously Captain America. Why do I have to be the distraction? Steve muttered as he started sprinting down the road towards the military blockade of Hydra soldiers. Steve dashes down the road faster than a cheetah, and as he gets closer to the checkpoint, the soldiers seem to notice him. Alarms are sounded and every soldier aims down the road with readied weapons. Fire! A soldier in command gives the order with a bloodthirsty smile. As Steve hears the order given, he makes himself smaller by hunching over and hides behind his trusty shield. While still running and hiding behind his shield, bullet after bullet impact the metal and either bounce off or fall to the ground in front of him. When the captain gets close enough, he leaps into the air over the blockade and lands behind the enemy. As he lands perfectly on the ground, Steve hurls his shield at the line of gunners that just fired at him. The shield was thrown with such force that it impacts and bounces from one person to the next. The first few people it hit died upon impact, and the others were severely injured. After hurling the shield, Steve didn't just stand there. He dashed towards other soldiers and attacked before they could ready their guns. As the shield hit the last man in the line, it sails high into the air. Steve jumped and kicked off a beaten enemy, launching himself into the air and catching the shield. As he lands on the ground, men clad in metal suits of armor armed with flamethrowers appear and shoot walls of flames around Steve. As the flames block Captain America in, a ton of soldiers arrive and every one of them surrounds Steve with guns drawn. We can talk about this, right? Steve raises his hands in surrender as the flames die down, revealing the many weapons aimed at him. The soldier that gave the order to fire earlier steps forward. Captain America. I will enjoy delivering you to our leader. Maybe I should gift wrap you with a pretty bow as well. Ha ha ha. He laughs and every soldier joins in, but they don't laugh for long. Suddenly, the ground under the Hydra soldiers trembles as earth spikes launch upward, slaughtering every Hydra soldier. They had no chance to pull the trigger, nor did they know what killed them. Thanks for gathering them up for us. Tom calls from the other side of the blockade. Behind him are the rest of the soldiers and his followers. Each of his followers has their wands drawn. The number of soldiers was a bit much for Tom to handle alone, so they did a group transfiguration to take out the outside guards. Yeah, you're welcome, but you're being the distraction next time. I was nearly roasted by those flamethrowers. Steve wipes some sweat from his face. It feels like I was in an oven. Oh, quit whining. Everything worked out, didn't it? Tom says as they cross the blockade and walk over to Steve. This is what you were going to do anyway. I just tweaked it so we didn't have to get captured. Chapter 97, Clash at the Entrance. As the team formed up once again, they made their way through the dead bodies and towards the bunker door. It's closed and locked tight. Not even a nuclear warhead could blow its way inside. All right, your plan worked, but how are we getting inside? Bucky asks as Steve nods along beside him. The reason Steve wanted to get caught was this monster of a door. If it's closed and locked, it's nearly impossible to get inside in a timely manner. You guys have such little faith in me. Tom shakes his head jokingly. Drew, would you do the honors, please? I would be delighted. She replies and points her wand at the giant bunker door. Alohomra. Suddenly, the noise of clicking gears could be heard. After a moment, the giant bunker unlocks fully and opens on its own. Every member of the Howling Commandos looked at the open door with stunned faces. Hey, any of you magicians want to go rob a bank after this? One of the commandos yelled and caused the others to start laughing. While the commandos were distracted, the enemy inside the bunker was already prepared. The second the door was open, acolytes of Grindelwald appeared and fired spells out the door. Protego. Tom and his followers call out as some of them transfigure cover for spells that can't be blocked magically. As the shields and cover appear saving everyone's lives, the laughter among the Howling Commandos halts, and the serious atmosphere returned. Every soldier leaned against the new cover and started returning fire at the magical enemies. A battle ensued and both sides were at a stalemate. Seeing the battle taking too long, Tom decided to start getting more involved. The enemy acolytes are behind cover in the tunnel leading into the base. Thinking of a good idea, Tom aims his wand at the towing bunker door and transfigured it into a mammoth with long tusks. The mammoth's appearance shocks everyone, especially the muggles, as it stampedes down the tunnel towards the enemy. The acolytes see the incoming threat and fire blasting spells at its legs to stop its charge. Their plan works, but not as they wanted it to. The mammoth got farther than they expected and tripped onto their position, crushing their cover along with half of them, killing and injuring many. Seeing the cover destroyed, Tom vanishes the mammoth so they can't hide behind it. Killing curses now. Tom ordered and every one of his followers fired the spell that can't be blocked. Without cover to protect them, the acolytes tried to dodge but many failed and were struck by the spells. With the numbers cut down enough to handle, Tom dashed into the bunker ready to engage the enemy with Drilla hot on his tail. Cover fire. Steve yells and everyone fired carefully as not to hit the friendlies. The remaining acolytes were easy work for Tom and Drilla. With the cover fire helping them immensely, they made short work of any leftover enemies. As the enemies were finished off, clapping could be heard from inside the tunnel. Everyone's attention was drawn as the man himself, Gellert Grindelwald, as he walks out of the shadows for all to see. Well done. I'm truly impressed. He says as he walks out without a wand, as if he could slaughter them at any time. Thanks, it's nice to be appreciated. Tom comments as his muscles tense for battle. Everyone behind him tenses as well, but stay behind cover. Drilla stands close to Tom with her wand at the ready. Yes, it is, isn't it? Gellert agrees with a nod. You must be the heir, I presume? Yes. Did you get the gift I left for you on the train? Tom asks excitedly like a child. Yes, it was quite extravagant. Grindelwald replies as a sour look graces his face. Tom simply nods along as if he were completely right. Yeah, I thought to myself. Me, what should I leave for the big bad dark lord that wants to take over the world? And I was like, he would appreciate something extravagant. Did you like it? Tom says, blatantly making fun of him. A frown forms on Gellert's face as he stares into Tom's eyes. A legitimacy attack strikes Tom's barriers but doesn't get through. If you want to pass my outer barriers, you'll have to try harder. Tom says, staring challengingly into Grindelwald's eyes. It seems you're right. Gellert nods but doesn't try again. You're quite young for someone so skilled. Who are you? Nobody special. Just your average everyday half-blood. Tom says with a wave of his hand. You can call me Tom though, but you won't be alive much longer, so it really doesn't matter. A half-blood? I have many of those in my ranks. I suppose you wouldn't be interested in joining alongside them? Gellert asks genuinely, ignoring the threat to his life completely. Talents like Tom are very rarely seen. Although Tom has angered him, Gellert would be willing to look past it. No thanks, Gellert. Can I call you Gellert? He pauses for a moment and then continues. I don't do the whole subordinate thing. I'm more of a leader like yourself. That's too bad. Then I'm afraid you'll all have to die here. Grindelwald draws the Elder Wand. As the smack talk has been going down, Tom was relaying orders to his followers. They were told to retreat and find another way inside. The group at the entrance to the bunker has already retreated. Tom told them to look for wherever the plane would take off. There would have to be an entrance there somewhere, or else how would the plane leave the base? Druella has vehemently refused to leave Tom's side, which has been annoying to deal with. Tom has tried every trick in the book to get her to turn around and go with the others, but every word he says seems to strengthen her resolve to stay. Maybe I should have stupefied her like Peggy? Tom sighed and gave up on getting Druella to safety. Chapter 98, Tom vs. Gellert, Part 1. When Tom sent the message for everyone to retreat, his followers weren't sure whether to follow it or not. They swore an oath to Tom and many felt wrong leaving him behind. Briar Rosier could tell that if they stayed, everyone would just drag Tom down. Their lord needs everyone clear so they don't get in the way or get themselves killed pointlessly. Seeing that he was one of the few that noticed this, he took charge immediately. You all heard the man. We need to retreat and find another way in. Staying here will do nothing but get in the Lord's way. Briar speaks and many agree. What do you mean retreat? Steve asks as the Howling Commandos look confused as well. Tom contacted us through magical means and told us to retreat and find another way in. He said he would handle Grindelwald while we take care of everything else. Briar explains the situation. Fine, but is there another way in? Bucky questions. This place should have an exit for the Valkyrie to take off from. Steve says as he ponders over where it could be. The Lord said the same thing. Leave finding the entrance to us. Magic has many uses. Briar says as they retreat from the bunker door, leaving behind Tom and Druella. Now that your allies have retreated, shouldn't we get to our duel? Grindelwald asks as he waves his wand casually. Yeah, you're right. Tom says as he draws his wand and looks over at Druella one last time. You should really leave, Drew. If you go now, you can still catch up to the others. No, I'm not leaving you alone with Gellert Grindelwald. Besides, I'm not weak. I can help. She says with conviction. Sigh. Why must women be so stubborn? Tom sighs and shakes his head. Fine, you can stay but don't get involved. As he said this, Druella became upset. When she was about to start voicing her displeasure, Tom spoke before she could get a word out. I'm going to be very blunt with you, Drew. I've been preparing for this fight for a while now. I want to test myself in this battle and you helping me will only hinder it. You can stay and watch. If anything goes wrong, feel free to come to my rescue, but until then get your ass on the sidelines. Tom says impatiently. Fine. Druella mutters as she grinds her teeth and clenches her fists. Stupid. Idiot. Jackass. She mentally calls Tom every name in the book as she puts some distance between her and them as he asked. You have a very beautiful relationship. I once had a similar connection, but our ideals didn't seem to align. Grindelwald says as he stares off into the distance for a moment. Yeah, Drew's great, but she'll be the death of me one of these days. Tom says as he and Gellert stand opposite one another with their wands drawn. I apologize for the wait. We can begin now. Good, I've been itching to have a good fight for a while now. Don't disappoint me. While Tom and Grindelwald were fighting, the group that retreated was looking for another entrance. With the help of Tom's followers using a locator spell, they marched through the woods and up the nearby mountain. The wizards used Transmigration in turns to make a stairway up the mountain to wherever this other entrance was. The trip up the mountain didn't take more than 20 minutes before they started seeing snow. Soon they found what they were looking for. A huge door and a runway for planes to take off. Luckily, the door was wide open as no one thought anyone would find it, nor did they think anyone would trek up a mountain to come looking. Inside the door is a hangar/runway with what seems to be the Valkyrie parked at the back. Hydra soldiers walked here and there guarding the plane and performing random tasks. All right, what's the plan? Bucky asks. Storm in and take them by surprise? They don't seem to be prepared for battle. Steve replies and looks towards everyone else for better ideas. Do you see any of our kind inside? Briar asks as he scans the area for any wizards. Nope, not a single rogue or stick in sight. Why? Steve says as he uses his enhanced eyesight to survey the hangar. Then this is what we'll do. Briar explains his plan. Don't disappoint me, Gellert said as he whipped his wand out and started throwing spells like a machine gun. I won't. Tom replies and his body jumps into action and starts dodging spells left and right. Every spell he couldn't dodge was blocked by a Protego. Any spells that couldn't be magically blocked were either dodged or Tom would transfigure cover for himself. The battle started off completely one-sided as Tom could do nothing but dodge. Some of the more low-level spells Grindelwald would throw didn't even need an incantation. He would just point the Elder Wand and the spell would come flying. Soon, Tom grew tired and running and started countering with his own spells. Though he wasn't nearly as fast at shooting them as Gellert was. If Tom could be said to shoot spells as fast as an assault rifle on full auto, Grindelwald is as fast as a minigun. The man was a machine when it came to spell chains, and it was probably thanks to the Elder Wand. Not to say he isn't skilled, but the Elder Wand is probably a big factor for his strength. While the battle raged on, Druella could do nothing but sit on the side and watch. She could see that Tom was losing and was starting to worry for him. It didn't take her long to notice that Grindelwald hadn't moved a single step from his position since the fight began. Should I intervene early? She thought as she watched Tom dance around dodging spell after spell, and when he had a chance to shoot his own, Grindelwald would brush it off with ease. Chapter 99 Tom vs. Gellert, Part 2. Stop holding back and come at me with all you've got. Grindelwald yells as he can feel Tom holding himself back. Tom stops dodging and backhands a spell away with a quick Protego. The battle comes to a halt as both sides stare at each other for a moment. Okay, but you asked for it. Try not to die so easily, all right? Tom says as he conjures a great sword made of eldritch energy. With the sword held firm in his hand, Tom dashes straight towards Gellert. When he saw Tom coming in for close-range combat, Grindelwald sneered and started firing spells again. As the spells closed in on Tom, he leaped into the air as if sprung from a trampoline, diving over every spell with ease as he grew closer to his enemy. Seeing Tom sailing through the air, Gellert thought he would be easy pickings. Avada Kedavra. He fired a pinpoint precision killing curse at Tom, thinking he wouldn't be able to dodge mid-air. Suddenly, the bottom of Tom's boots lit up in golden color as he took a step on air and avoided the killing curse easily. After slipping past the curse, Tom landed a few feet away from Gellert and swiftly dashed towards him with his sword pulled back. As Tom was about to get close enough to strike, Gellert disappeared from sight and appeared a few meters ahead. "Running away, are we?" Tom taunts with a smirk on his face. "It seems so." Gellert replies, not affected by the taunt at all. "What are those boots?" "Just something I picked up on the road of life." Tom avoids the question. I'll find out once I've looted your corpse, I suppose." Gellert says, and the battle starts once more. When Briar explained the plan to everyone, they seemed to like it immensely. With everything figured out, the plan was put into action. Tom's followers placed notice-me-nots on every single howling commando, including themselves. Once that was done, they rushed into the hangar as fast as possible, as the wards around the place would notify any remaining magical of their arrival. As soon as they entered, they split up a bit and everyone picked a target. At the drop of a quarter as the signal, everyone fired a gun or spell at their target, killing more than half the guards in the hangar instantly. As the guards fell over dead, every remaining guard jumped into high alert. Since they gave away their position when they attacked, the notice-me-not faded and revealed the Allies' position. A firefight ensued and Hydra soldiers started falling one by one. Steve was not among those that engaged the enemy. He was given a different task and a much more important one at that. While under a notice-me-not, Captain America made a run for the Valkyrie parked at the back of the hangar. His objective to either tear it apart or fly away with it before an enemy can. He may not know how to fly a plane, but Steve is the fastest out of everyone there. He's their best shot at getting in board in case someone tries to fly off. Suddenly, every door leading into the hangar opened and more soldiers along with wizards and witches came pouring inside to join the battle. At the lead of them was Red Skull. He came out a door extremely close to the Valkyrie and ran towards it at the same speed as Steve. Because he was closer, Red Skull climbed into the plane first and started booting it up. In the movie, the plane was powered by the Tesseract, but due to Tom's thievery, it's now powered by magic gathered from the air with runes. This addition can be credited to Grindelwald as no one else would be able to combine magic and technology so easily, except Dumbledore maybe. Red Skull set the coordinates towards the first target for bombing, New York City. With a population of almost 8 million, many would die if the plane wasn't stopped before arrival. As the engines flare into motion, the plane moved forward toward the open hangar door. Steve ran as fast as he could and managed to grab onto the bottom hatch entrance to the plane. Using his super strength, he twisted it open with ease and climbed inside. The fight between Tom and Grindelwald became a game of tag. Tom would use his vaulting boots to get close and engage the man with his sword, while Grindelwald would apparate away and fire spells at him. This continued for 10 minutes before Tom started getting annoyed with the continuous apparition to get away. After Tom got close to him one last time, Grindelwald apparat away once again. Tom looked at him appear a few meters away yet again and clicked his tongue. "Since you love to run away so much, how about we put your skills to the test?" Tom rhetorically asks as he starts calling on the eldritch energy. Grindelwald stops firing spells for a moment as he could tell Tom was about to do something dangerous to his well-being. He prepared to apparate away and watched curiously to see what would happen. "I know I said this before, but I mean it this time. Try not to die so easily," Tom exclaims as dozens of golden chains exit his body. At the end of these chains are weapons of different kinds. Swords, knives, spears, and anything with a pointed tip used to pierce an enemy. Every chain moves as if by Tom's command, as the weapons at the end point menacingly at Grindelwald's position. It may not be exactly like Gilgamesh, but it's the best I could do on such short notice, Tom thought as the chains coil back like a snake ready to strike. Chapter 100 Woohoo! While the group stayed behind to fight off the enemies, Steve entered the Valkyrie just in time to take off out of the hangar and into the sky. When he got inside the plane and closed the hatch, there was multiple fighter planes with their targets written on them. Boston, Chicago, New York, and many more. Pilots waited by their respective planes and other soldiers on board patrolled the area. Steve didn't waste any time and started attacking every person on board. After Steve has managed to disable the fighter planes and their pilots, he searches for the cockpit where Red Skull is waiting with an annoyed scowl. "You don't give up, do you?" Red Skull says as he stares at Captain America in exasperation. "Nope." Steve replies with a punch to his enemy's face. The punch causes Red Skull's head to reel backward from the impact. If a punch that strong was taken by a normal man, his head would cave in and his neck would snap. The fight begins as Captain America and Red Skull go at it for the second time. Although, something has changed in this fight. The battle is no longer one-sided. All of the battle experience Steve has gained since their first fight has sharpened his skills to an amazing extent. The fight was far more evenly matched, but Red Skull hasn't slacked off either. Although Steve could keep up with him, it is Red Skull that is setting the pace for the fight. With every movement and attack, Steve is still slightly behind his more experienced nemesis. "You could have the power of the gods," Red Skull exclaims with conviction as he kicks the captain into a thick metal wall, denting it slightly. "Yet you wear a flag on your chest and think you fight a battle of nations." "I have seen the future, Captain. There are no flags." "Not my future." Steve answers back as he hurls his shield in Red Skull's direction. The shield spins like a frisbee going 300 miles per hour and strikes Red Skull directly in the chest. The impact sends him flying back into an improvised ward stone that powers everything in and on the Valkyrie. The ward stone cracks almost in half and a magical blue light leaks out. As it leaks from the stone, the light envelopes Red Skull, causing him to scream in terrible pain. "Ah! What have you done?" "No!" Red Skull screams as energy starts to gather around him, revealing a window into space. A stream of blue magical energy engulfs him and takes him into the window, screaming in fright and anguish. As Red Skull disappears through the window, the ward stone falls into pieces and the energy inside dissipates. When the last of the energy is gone, the window in space closes as if it was never there. I'm glad I wasn't standing near him," Steve muttered, left alone in the cockpit by himself. Steve takes over the plane's controls. On a screen he reads "Target New York City" with a map showing how far away the plane is from the target. He tries everything he can to change the target, but no matter what he does, the computer seems to be password protected. Soon, alerts of every kind started going off and the plane started tipping. Steve quickly grabbed the yoke, which is the steering wheel, and tried pulling up. He was able to slow his descent slightly, but the plane is still going down. Seeing no way out of this, Steve tries the radio and searches for a channel he knew Colonel Chester Phillips would be on. "Come in. This is Captain Rogers. Do you read me?" Steve says into the radio once he found the right channel. "Captain Rogers, what is your?" Colonel Phillips replies, but Peggy snatches the microphone from him. "Steve, is that you? Are you all right? How could you leave me behind like that?" Peggy says as with worry and anger blatant in her voice. "I'm sorry, Peg. I couldn't lose you, so I did what I thought was best. If given the choice again, I would repeat it the same way over and over. Schmidt's dead, by the way." Steve smiles bitterly as he speaks to the love of his life. "Whatever, we'll talk about you leaving me behind later. What about the plane? Did you disable it as you planned?" she asks, hoping everything is going well. "That's a little bit tougher to explain," Steve says as he glances at the destroyed power source. "Give me your coordinates, I'll find you a safe landing site." she says as soldiers behind her scramble around ready to find a good landing area. There's not going to be a safe landing. Everything is going haywire and I can barely control the plane, but I can try my best. Steve says as he knows he probably won't survive. I'll get Howard on the line, he'll know what to do. Peggy shakily answers and someone hands her a phone. There's not enough time. This thing's nosediving too fast. It was heading for New York originally. I gotta try to put her in the water. Steve says as he tries to be hopeful. Please, don't do this. We have time. We can work it out. Peggy replies in panic as she tries to solve the problem. Right now I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm pulling the stick back as far as it will go, but I'm still nosediving. Peg, I have no choice. Steve says as he resigns himself to his situation. A moment of silence happens on the radio as neither side knows what to say. Peggy? I'm here. Peggy answers with heartbreak in her voice. I may need a rain check on our wedding. Steve says, implying he may die. Sniff. All right. We can wait until next June. That way we have the best weather. Tears cloud Peggy's vision as she replies. You got it. Steve agrees with a sad smile. I want to be married outside in a garden while the sun is setting behind us, understood? She smiles tearfully as she imagines their wedding. You know, I still don't know how to dance. Steve jokes, causing Peggy to crack a small smile. I'll show you how. Just be there. Peggy says, longing for his safety. We'll have the band play something slow. I'd hate to step on your... Steve says as the line goes static and Peggy begins to weep, surrounded by Allied soldiers looking at her with sadness and pity. Steve. 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 She wails into the microphone, hoping for a reply but never received one. Chapter 101 Tom vs. Gellert, Part 3. In a humble home in Godric's Hollow, Albus Dumbledore paced around his study. The man has been receiving updates on everything Gellert Grindelwald and he didn't like what he heard. Many people waited outside the study for his decision. Two of these people are the famous Newt Scamander and the snake in human form herself, Nagini. They have seen what horrors Grindelwald has done and will do, so they wish to put a stop to the madness. Gellert has taken over some Nazi organization and planned to bomb major Muggle cities, killing every occupant. Albus didn't know what to do. Should he get involved and stop a man that was once very dear to him, or should he sit back and allow the world to continue its spiral into chaos? After pacing for the last time, Albus left his study and addressed everyone. We will put a stop to Gellert and his plans. He can't be allowed to act with such foolishness any longer. Albus says and smiles bloomed on everyone's faces as they knew that Albus was a key part to beating Grindelwald. Sweets. Pop. Yes, Master Albie? The elf said upon its arrival. Take us to Gellert's location. I know I said this before, but I mean it this time. Try not to die so easily. In the tunnel entrance to the Hydra main base, 3 people could be seen. 2 men staring down one another and a woman standing off to the side with worry written all over her face. The older man dressed in a fine suit with blonde hair and a stick in hand. The other younger man dressed casually with black hair, a bone wand in one hand, and a golden broadsword in the other. Dozens of golden chains with weapons of every kind attached to the end emerged from his body. These 3 people are obviously Grindelwald, Tom, and Druella. The chains attached to Tom rear back like a snake and shoot forward at a lightning-fast speed. When Grindelwald saw these chains, he knew he was in for a tougher fight than he's had so far. Up to now, this duel has been a walk in the park for him. His eyes widen as the chains come crashing down at him. He immediately apparates to a safe distance and the weapons on the end of the chains embed themselves into the metal floor. As Grindelwald appears a few meters away, more chains move in for the strike once again. The golden chains dance in the air, as Grindelwald constantly teleports for his life. Every time he appears in a new area, more weapons come striking down at such force that even a shield made with the Elder Wand wouldn't hold for long. Slowly but surely, Grindelwald's magic reserves start running low. With every use of apparition, his magic supply is being expended. On the other hand, Tom is calling forth energy that is quite literally inexhaustible. He could summon these chains all day as long as he has good control, which he does after days of non-stop practice. Not to mention the years spent working with eldritch energy, perfecting his use of it. Sweat started to appear on Gellert's face as the huge loss of his magic takes a toll on his body. With every teleport, he starts huffing and puffing for air to fuel his tired body. The constant teleportation breaking his regular breathing cycle, causing Grindelwald to run out of oxygen. With a lack of air, Gellert starts to get dizzy and is slow to apparate away. 2 golden swords attached to chains pierce both of his thighs and pin him to the floor. Ah! Gellert screams in pain. The agonizing pain makes Grindelwald forget to apparate away. Even if he did, the energy from the swords would disrupt the teleportation and cancel it. On top of all this, Gellert can't move or else the swords would cut his legs further than they already have. While Grindelwald screams in pain, suddenly the sound of elf travel could be heard. Pop! Albus Dumbledore appears along with a few dozen armed wizards and witches. They survey the area and are shocked to see Gellert pinned to the floor by golden swords. They then seize Tom and Druella, both dressed in muggle clothes with porcelain masks hiding their faces. What in the world? Albus exclaims as he sees the chains connected to Tom coiled in the air like angered snakes. Albus! Is that you? Gellert screams as his vision is blurred due to the pain. He tries to stay as still as possible so the swords don't cause further damage to his legs. Blood starts to pool heavily around Gellert's feet as he starts to feel his body grow heavy. Yes, what's going on? Dumbledore asks as he runs over to Grindelwald's side. The rest of his group stay where they arrived and look on curiously. Before he could get halfway there, golden spears pierce into the ground in front of him. Chains wrap around the spears creating a fence to block Albus's path. I'm going to say this once. Tom says, addressing Dumbledore and the people he brought along. Leave the area now, or I'll consider you an enemy. When Dumbledore heard that voice, he couldn't believe it. With all the time spent in his class, it's hard not to recognize a student's voice. Especially this student. Albus turned to stare at the masked man with dozens of golden chains emerging from his body. He looked closer and saw the dark black hair and the bright red eyes. He's only seen eyes like those from one person, Tom Riddle. Tom Riddle, is that you? Albus asks in shock. Sigh. I guess the disguise doesn't work against people who know me very well. After all, you are my stalker. Tom comments as he takes off his mask and drops it to the ground. I won't be needing that anymore. Dumbledore looks over at the girl on the side and immediately he knew who it was. There was only one girl that rarely left Tom's side. Druella as well. What are you two doing here? He asks and Druella removes her mask as well. Thank you. It was getting hot in that thing. She says as he waves over the Albus. Hello, Professor. What does it look like we're doing, Professor? Tom asks, gesturing to the pale and dying Gellert Grindelwald. But. Albus looks around in confusion. Albus, help me, please. Grindelwald calls out as it gets harder and harder to stay still. He's going to kill me. During the distraction of Dumbledore's arrival, he tried to apparate away, but the eldritch energy from the sword blocked it. His only hope for survival is the man that just arrived. Albus looked at Gellert with alarm and didn't know what to do. He wanted to come here and subdue Gellert, not kill him. That was an option for the last resort. Although he has gone down such a dark and bloody path, Albus couldn't bring himself to kill the man he once knew. Seeing Professor Dumbledore's indecision, Tom speaks up once more. Usually I wouldn't repeat myself, but I will say it again, Professor. Leave the area now, or I'll consider you an enemy. Chapter 102 Ariana. Usually I wouldn't repeat myself, but I will say it again, Professor. Leave the area now, or I'll consider you an enemy. Tom says, and Albus stood frozen for a moment. As Dumbledore was stuck with indecision, the people that arrived with him were perfectly content leaving the area. They came here to get rid of Grindelwald, and it seems that they weren't needed in the first place. The only reason they haven't already left is Albus. They're waiting for him to leave with them. Albus, maybe we should go? The job we came here to do seems to be taken care of. Newt calls, and everyone around him, including Nagini, nod in agreement. Memories of his time with Gellert flash through his mind. Albus remembers the good and the bad times that they shared together. Staring behind the golden gate separating him from Gellert, Albus sees the color drained from his face as the blood continues to pour around him. The golden swords lodged into his legs, trapping him in place. The scared look that graced his face is something that Albus has never seen before. Albus. I'm sorry about Ariana. Grindelwald's raspy voice called out. Please, help me. Ariana was the youngest of Dumbledore's siblings. At the age of 6, she was seen practicing magic by a group of Muggle boys. When she was unable to show them how to reproduce the magic, they violently assaulted her. The attack left Ariana emotionally scarred and unable to control her magic. Her father sought revenge against the boys and attacked them. Because of this, he was sentenced to Azkaban. He refused to reveal the reason for the attack since Ariana would have been sent to St. Mungo's if her condition was discovered, as it threatened the statute of secrecy. When their mother passed away, Albus, as the eldest brother, took custody of Ariana and was put in charge of her care. Their mother's death was due to Ariana having a violent outburst of uncontrollable magic. Albus and Gellert used to be close with one another. As they were both extraordinarily talented and very ambitious, the two formed a plan to take over the wizarding world and make Muggles subservient for the greater good. Albus's brother, Aberforth, confronted them over these plans, pointing out that Ariana was in no state to be dragged along with them as they pursued their dreams. Grindelwald became furious, insisting that once they subdued the Muggles, there would be no need for Ariana to be hidden. A three-way duel broke out between him, Albus, and Aberforth. Ariana, who was 14 at the time and unable to control her magic, tried to stop it and was inadvertently killed. It was never known which of the three wizards was directly responsible for her death. Ariana's death wasn't your fault, Albus. Gellert mutters loud enough for everyone to hear. I know you blame yourself, but you shouldn't. Tears begin to pour from Dumbledore's eyes as he hears Gellert's words. He always took the blame for what happened to his sister. He blamed himself to no end, but he wasn't the only one. His brother Aberforth put the blame squarely on his shoulders as well. Albus was her guardian and Ariana's well-being was his responsibility. Dumbledore was lost for words for a moment. After a moment of waiting, Tom could see Dumbledore's posture change and a determined spark shone from his eyes. Tom could tell that he made his decision. Tom, release Gellert into my custody. Albus says as he turns his attention towards his student. He will be put on trial for his crimes and imprisoned according to the law. Or I could just kill him and be done with it. Tom laughs and wiggles the swords embedded in Gellert's legs. Ah! Grindelwald screams in agony as the swords gyrate in his thighs. Dumbledore's eyes widen as he operates past the golden fence and appears beside Gellert, grabbing one sword and yanking it from his leg. Ah! Grindelwald wailed as the sword was pulled from his leg. When Albus appeared beside Gellert, everyone that came with him stood rooted to the floor. They only sought out Albus to get rid of Grindelwald. They wanted him dead and wouldn't try to protect him as Albus seems to be doing. Seeing that Albus wouldn't leave as he asked, Tom looked to the floor beside Gellert. On the floor in a puddle of blood, lay the Elder Wand in all of its glory. The second the swords impaled his legs, Grindelwald dropped the wand and completely forgot about it. The pain and gravity of the situation were the only things running through his mind. Accio Elder Wand. Tom muttered quietly. Before anyone could notice what happened, the wand flew from its position on the floor and into Tom's grasp. As Albus healed the wound on the leg he pulled the sword from, he saw the wand fly from the ground near him and into Tom's hands. He finally found out why Tom was here. He came here for the Elder Wand. Albus thought immediately as all of his doubts and worries related to Tom surfaced in his mind. "I gave you the chance to leave, Professor," Tom said as he could feel the Elder Wand accept him. He felt magical power like never before flowing through him. The surge of power from the wand makes Tom feel as though he could take on any opponent. As this is happening, Albus pulled the other sword free and healed Gellert's other leg. Albus then fed him a blood-replenishing potion. Color returned to Grindelwald's face as he stood tall once again. He's still low on magic, but at least he has his mobility back. "Gellert, we should go," Albus says as he pulls the blond man to his feet. As Grindelwald stands to his feet, he looks for his wand and sees it in Tom's hand. A murderous expression shows on his face. As he looks to Dumbledore, that expression turns softer. A smile graces the once anger-frenzied face as he moves closer to him. "Thank you for saving me, Albus," Grindelwald says as he pulls Albus into a hug. Albus was truly shocked and froze in place. After a moment, he reciprocated the hug with a fond smile on his face. "But, I'm going to need more help." Suddenly, Dumbledore starts yelling in pain. His face contorts as the life drains from his body. His body shrivels up like a mummy as Gellert seems to become healthier and younger looking by the second. As the screams subsided, Gellert tosses the mummified corpse of Albus aside. He looked younger by at least 20 years and seemed to be brimming with magical power. Chapter 103, Tom vs. Gellert, Part 4. Gasps could be heard all around as everyone was shocked to see Albus mummify before them. The only one that wasn't really surprised was Tom. He thought something like this would happen and decided not to interfere. Getting rid of Dumbledore was a challenge that he didn't want to face. Someone like Grindelwald, who is openly a piece of shit, can be handled without any backlash, but a man that hides himself and plays the good guy routine is much harder to get rid of. Although, in Tom's mind the situation could have gone 50-50. Either Grindelwald would betray Albus, as we just saw, or he would join up with him. Both situations would have been favorable to Tom, but this one is the better of the two. With Dumbledore dead on the floor, Gellert summons his wand and looks to Tom. His face twisted in anger as he glared hatefully in Tom's direction. "Give me back my wand and I'll spare your life and the lives of everyone you've ever loved," the younger Gellert commands in a demanding tone. Tom raises his hand to his chin. "How about you stick your boyfriend's wand up your ass and fire off a spell or two?" Veins start to throb on Gellert's forehead as he raises Dumbledore's wand and starts firing spell after spell. More chains exit Tom's body, but these are slightly different. At the end of these chains are shields that fit together like a puzzle. Each shield forms together, making a wall that blocks every spell. As the spells are being blocked, the offensive chains surge into action yet again. Weapons start cracking down on Gellert's position, but this time he tries a different strategy. First, Gellert shields himself from the impact of the oncoming weapons. The golden eldritch weapons bang onto the invisible shields, slowly cracking them apart. As the shields are doing their work, Gellert starts transfiguring the area around them. Countless thick stone pillars shoot up from the ground and tear through the area. When he was finished, he looked slightly worn out. The number of pillars conjured would have taken an incredible amount of magic, and without the Elder Wand, he can't perform such grand acts of magic so easily. Before the shield broke, the teleportation started once again. Grindelwald operate constantly to dodge the golden chain weapons. With every escape, he would teleport to the opposite side of the pillared area. He plans to tangle the chains with pillars. Once the chains are tangled up as planned, he could go for the killing blow. Soon, Tom's chains were wrapping around pillar after pillar as they constantly sought out Gellert's next location. Crisscrossing as they start to line the entire area. After a few more teleports, the chains could no longer move. Gellert was almost out of magic yet again, and Tom was trying to pull his chains back but failed every time. Even the shield chains were tangled in the mess of pillars that were created. Tom became frantic and started pulling the chains with a mad will to survive. He is stuck in place and the chains couldn't be recalled. Hee, not so strong now, are you? Gellert laughs as he casually walks up to Tom's position. Stay away. Tom calls frantically as he yanks on the chains for dear life. What happened to all of that backtalk you used to have? Did it disappear with your chances of a long and happy life? Gellert smirks evilly as he stands before Tom in murderous glee. He then sees the wand tight in Tom's grip. I'll be taking that. Expelliarmus. The wand flies from Tom's hand, but something doesn't feel right about this. It's starting to feel like it's too easy. Gellert looks at the wand that landed before him and could see it's the genuine article. His worry disappears as he bends to pick up what was rightfully his. As he's about to grasp the wand, a golden spear impales itself into Gellert's heart. The wand flies back into Tom's hand as his once frightened expression disappears. You may have juiced yourself up with magic and rejuvenated your body, but without the Elder Wand you're not really a challenge for me. It was fun toying with you while you lasted, I suppose. Tom says as the chains that held him in place disappear. What? Grindelwald stuttered as the life drains from his eyes and he joins his boyfriend in the next great adventure. Tom. Druella yelled as a torpedo slams into him, knocking him on the floor. Don't ever do that again, do you hear me? I thought you were actually losing for a minute. She says, hugging Tom tightly as tears stream down her face. Sorry, Drew. Tom mutters as he hugs her back and tries to calm her down. The hardest part about that entire fight was keeping Druella from getting involved. As he started faking weakness towards the end, Tom had to literally command her through the mark, as her lord, not to come and help. As they were laying on the ground, Druella felt a spike in courage and picked her head up off Tom's chest. She looked him in the eye for a moment and pushed her lips out and leaned forward. Their lips touched and Tom laid frozen for a moment. Soon, Tom puckered his lips as well instead of just laying there like a dead fish. The kiss was nothing grand. Their lips touched and they stayed frozen together on the floor, entranced in the feeling of one another. Druella felt amazing as tingles crawled up her spine. She's been waiting for this moment for a while, but couldn't find the courage to just go for it. Although this isn't Tom's first kiss, as he had another life, he found himself getting a bit excited and nervous about it. It feels like his first kiss all over again. Well, it technically is his first kiss all over again. Ahem. Newt Scamander clears his throat as everyone that came along with Albus came walking over. What? Can't you see we're busy here? Druella yells at the people interrupting her precious moment. I'm starting to see how Steve felt when I did this to him. Is this karma? This marks the end of part 12 of the story, I'm Voldemort. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe the video to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.